All stories posted on our channel are stories from our subscribers and created by us based on real events we've experienced and witnessed. We post new stories every day for your entertainment, that we hope you enjoy them. Thank you. I used to be the kind of guy who thought love could fix anything. That if you gave enough, stayed patient, and stayed loyal, eventually things would fall into place. I really believe that, especially with her. Her name's Madison. We met when we were both 26, working in the same building. I was in IT. She worked in HR. First time I saw her, she had this energy like she lit up a room without trying. She was smart, funny, had this sarcastic edge that made conversations feel electric. And I'll be honest, I was hooked before we even went on our first date. Fast forward 6 years, we got married, bought a small house in Austin, started building a life. I was always the provider. I'm not saying that in a bragging way. It's just what it was. I worked long hours, picked up freelance projects on the side when bills were tight, always made sure she had what she needed. She worked too? Yeah, but part-time after a while. Said she wanted more time for herself, yoga classes, meeting friends, that sort of thing. I never complained. I figured if I could carry more so she could breathe easier, why not? That's what love's about, right? But things started changing. Slowly. So slow that I didn't even realize what was happening until it was already far gone. At first, it was subtle stuff. She'd pull away when I kissed her. Said she was tired, or that her head hurt, or she was stressed. Then it became patterns. No affection during the week. No touching at night. We go to bed like roommates, she on her side, phone in hand, back turned. And me, just lying there pretending I wasn't bothered. I brought it up once, tried to ask if she was okay, if something was off. I didn't accuse her of anything. I just said I felt like we were drifting. She sighed, rolled her eyes, and said, "Why do men always think something's wrong just because a woman doesn't feel like being touched? It's my body, it's my rules." That line hit me harder than I thought it would. Not because I disagreed. I get it, consent, boundaries, space. But this wasn't about forcing anything. This was my wife. The woman I'd build a home with. The woman I gave my life to. I wasn't asking for anything outrageous. I was asking for closeness, for connection. For the simple, quiet kind of intimacy that keeps a marriage alive. But after that day, she leaned into it even more. Like the more distance she created, the more power she felt. She started saying it often. My body, my rules. Don't touch me unless I say so. I'm not your toy. I never treated her like that. Never laid a finger on her out of line. Never even raised my voice. But suddenly, every time I tried to initiate anything, a hug, a kiss, even a hand on her waist while we were making coffee, she treated it like a violation. What made it worse was that everyone else got the version of her that used to be mine. Her friends got the laughs. Her Instagram followers got the smiles. The gym instructor got the attention. The coworkers? She'd come home talking about how hilarious Brad was, how supportive Jenna was, how much she loved office lunches. Me? I got the cold leftovers. I was the guy who paid the mortgage, paid the car note, paid for her skincare subscriptions and new outfits, and then came home to silence and avoidance. I remember one night, clear as day, Friday night, and of a brutal week at work. I got home, beat down emotionally and physically. She had just finished doing her nails, and the house smelled like polish. She looked good. New dress, makeup done, hair curled. I smiled and said, "Wow, you look amazing tonight." She barely looked up from her phone and said, "Thanks. Girls' night." I nodded, tried to mask the disappointment. Before leaving, she stood at the door and casually said, "Hey, can you transfer $300 to my card? We're doing sushi, then a club." I blinked. 300. She smirked. "Yeah, I want to have fun, not count pennies." "You've got it." I hesitated. "Madison, we haven't even had dinner together all week. Can we talk first?" She shot me a look, the kind that says, "Don't even start." Then came the words. "Look, I'm not in a mood for this. You're acting needy again. I told you, it's my body, my rules. Don't make me feel guilty for needing space." She said that with her hand on her hip, waiting for me to send the money. I stared at her, not in anger, but in realization. That was the moment it clicked. She wanted all the perks, my wallet, my stability, my protection, without any of the relationship. She had turned marriage into a service contract, and I was the service provider. I sent the money, but that was the night something in me broke quietly. I didn't argue, didn't yell. I watched her walk out the door, laughing on FaceTime with one of her friends. And I just sat there in that quiet house, realizing I was sleeping next to a stranger every night. From that night on, something in me began to pull back, not out of revenge, but out of self-preservation. I stopped trying, stopped begging for attention. I still did my duties, still paid the bills, still cooked dinner some nights. But emotionally, I was checking out, quietly, completely. And the craziest part? She didn't notice. Not right away. She thought I'd keep being the same guy, the quiet giver, the emotional sponge. But things were shifting, and for once, I wasn't going to explain it. I didn't have a dramatic outburst or some kind of movie moment where I yelled at Madison or stormed out. No, it was quieter than that. Quieter, and a hell of a lot colder. After that night, she demanded $300 to go out with her friends. Right after shutting me down emotionally and physically all week, I started seeing things clearly. Like someone had cleaned the fog off a mirror, and now I could finally see myself. I didn't like what I saw. I was a man who had been bending over backward for someone who gave nothing back. I had turned into a one-man support system for a woman who didn't even look at me like a husband anymore. She had all the freedom, all the access, all the benefits, and she was giving me scraps. Emotionally, physically, spiritually, and every time I brought it up, I got hit with my body, my rules. All right, message received. That weekend, I started changing things. Not loudly, not spitefully, just methodically. The first thing I did was open a new checking account, one that only had my name on it. I started shifting my direct deposits over, paychecks, freelance payments, everything. The joint account stayed open, but I only left just enough for bills. No extras, no wiggle room, no luxury splurges. Then I went through the shared credit cards, the ones I was paying off each month. I reduced her limit to $100 on her card and set it to alert me for every purchase. Not to control her, but to stop funding a lifestyle that didn't include me anymore. Madison didn't notice immediately. She was too busy planning her next brunch, her next spa appointment, her next night out. But I noticed, and that was enough. The next thing I did was stop volunteering my time and energy for things she didn't value. I stopped doing her car maintenance. I stopped buying little gifts just to see her smile. I stopped checking in to see how she was feeling emotionally, because she clearly didn't want that from me anymore. If she wanted space, I gave it. In every way. She had her body and her boundaries. I had my peace and my silence. And let me tell you, that silence hit her harder than any argument ever could. She started asking, "Why are you being distant?" I just shrug and say, "I'm respecting your space." She'd frown. "You used to be more affectionate." I'd reply, "You used to be too." No yelling, no sarcasm, just plain honesty. That kind of honesty makes people uncomfortable because there's nothing to fight back against. One morning, I made coffee like I always did. She came downstairs in a robe, clearly hoping for one of our old routines. A kiss on the cheek, a "good morning, babe." I handed her the mug. No kiss, no touch, just a polite, "Here you go." She looked at me weird. "What's going on with you lately?" she asked. "I'm adjusting," I said. That's all. She didn't say anything after that, but her eyes lingered longer than usual. Like something inside her was realizing that the man she'd taken for granted wasn't playing along anymore. The moment that told me she was starting to feel the shift came a few days later. She called me at work. "Hey, I booked a facial for Saturday. Can you send me $150? I paused. "I thought you still had your card." "I do, but got declined last time. And there's like nothing in the joint account. Can you just move some money over?" I took a breath. "No, not this time. I've got some things I'm prioritizing right now." There was silence. That kind of stunned silence people give when they've never heard no before. She laughed. "Wow, really?" "Yeah," I said calmly. "My money, my rules." "Right." She didn't respond. Just hung up. Over the next few weeks, it started to dawn on her that I wasn't just in a mood. I was making changes. No more gas station receipts with her name on them. No more automatic transfers to her Venmo. No more Uber rides to her best friend's house on my account. She started noticing things like I was dressing better, hitting the gym more, going out with coworkers after work instead of rushing home. She started asking questions. Where were you last night? You didn't tell me you were going out. You used to ask me if I needed anything. I just smiled and said, you used to ask me how I was doing too. We're both making changes, I guess. That's when she started getting frustrated. She'd start small fights just to get a reaction. One night she said, you're acting cold lately. And I just looked at her, dead in the eyes, and said, so were you. For months. What did you think would happen? That I'd just keep pouring into a dry cup? She tried to cry, tried to flip the roles, said I was punishing her for setting boundaries. I said no. You set your rules. I'm just living by mine now. You made it clear I don't have a say over your body, and that's fine. But don't expect me to bankroll a lifestyle that doesn't include me anymore. She didn't expect that. She expected a tantrum. She got strategy. One night, she came into the room wearing lingerie. Out of nowhere. Something she hadn't done in over a year. I just looked at her and said, what's this about? She said, I thought maybe we could reconnect. I stared at her. Not angrily. Just honestly. You said no so many times I stopped asking. And now that the money slowed down, you want to fix things? Her voice cracked. It's not like that. But it was like that. And we both knew it. I didn't sleep with her that night. Not because I wanted revenge, but because I didn't trust her anymore. I didn't feel emotionally safe. And that matters. When a man checks out emotionally, it's not because he stopped loving. It's because he loved too long without anything in return. And you know the craziest part? Once I stopped fighting for her love, she started chasing mine. Once I stopped explaining myself, she started questioning herself. And once I started making rules of my own, she finally felt what it was like to be on the outside. The distance she created? She built that wall. I just stopped climbing it. The thing about emotional detachment is that it doesn't happen all at once. It's not like flipping a switch. It's more like turning off the lights one room at a time until the house is completely dark. That's what happened with Madison and me. By the time she realized how far I'd pulled away, I had already rebuilt the part of me that used to chase her approval. And I wasn't interested in going back. It started subtly, her trying to be nicer. Little things like making me breakfast again on weekends, asking how I slept, sitting a little closer on the couch, wearing my favorite perfume. At first, I didn't even respond. Not out of spite, but because I honestly didn't trust it. I wasn't sure if it was genuine or if she just missed the benefits that came with being adored. Because the affection she was now offering, that same attention and physical closeness, that used to be standard, and then she took it away like a punishment. Now she was offering it back, like a trade. And I wasn't buying. One night, she said something that stuck with me. We were having dinner, silent, as usual, and out of nowhere she said, I think we lost something between us, but I want to get it back. I looked up from my plate. What do you think we lost exactly? She hesitated. That closeness. The connection. I nodded. You mean the one you shut down when I tried talk? When you told me my body, my rules like I was some stranger. She looked down, suddenly finding her fork very interesting. I didn't mean it like that. I was just overwhelmed. I felt pressure. I let that sit for a second. You felt pressure to be close to your own husband? She didn't have a response. The thing is, by then, I wasn't angry anymore. Just tired. Tired of being the only one who had to be patient, understanding, forgiving. Tired of carrying all the emotional weight while she got to live like a free agent. What she didn't know was that I had already found something she hadn't even looked for in a long time. Peace. It wasn't another woman. Let me be clear about that. I didn't cheat. I didn't line up someone new while we were together. What I did was rediscover myself. I started going to the gym consistently, not to impress anyone, but to feel good in my own skin again. I reconnected with a couple of old friends I had stopped talking to because she didn't like them. I spent weekends hiking, reading, even picked up photography again, something I used to love before we got married. And most of all, I stopped walking on eggshells. If I wanted to laugh loud, I did. If I wanted to stay out late, I did. I no longer asked permission to live. That was the freedom I didn't even realize I had lost. But Madison started noticing. One morning, she asked, Are you seeing someone? I looked her in the eye and said no. I'm just seeing myself again. She didn't like that answer. She didn't like not being the center anymore. Over the next few weeks, she kept trying to recreate old patterns, cooking my favorite meals, dressing up, asking about my day. She even suggested we take a weekend trip together, just us. But by that point, I didn't want just us. Because us was broken long before she noticed. Us died the moment I begged for her attention and got dismissed like I was clingy. Us faded the moment she weaponized her body against me and then expected me to keep showing up like a loyal puppy. You don't get to neglect someone for months and then expect instant reconnection just because you decided you're ready again. That's not love. That's convenience. And I was done being convenient. The real turning point came on a Sunday. She came into the living room where I was editing photos on my laptop and sat next to me, closer than she had in months. I was thinking, she said, maybe we should go to that couple's retreat you mentioned last year. I want to work on us. Really work on us. I didn't even pause what I was doing. I just said, Madison, it's too late. She blinked. Too late for what? For this. For pretending this can be fixed with a retreat or a dinner or sex. Her face fell. So what? You're just giving up? I finally looked at her. And for once, I wasn't angry. I wasn't cold. I was just done. No, I said. I gave up a long time ago. You just didn't notice. She started to cry. But I didn't comfort her. I didn't reach out. Because I remembered what it felt like to cry alone while she rolled over and told me to respect her space. I stood up, grabbed my keys, and said, I'm going out. I don't know when I'll be back. She followed me to the door. So that's it? You just done being my husband? I turned back. Madison, you stopped being my wife a long time ago. You just didn't tell me. 2 weeks later, I moved out. I didn't do it with drama. No social media posts. No friends involved. No revenge games. Just a suitcase, a signed lease, and peace of mind. I got a one-bedroom apartment downtown. Small but mine. She called. A lot. Texted long paragraphs. Apologies. Guilt. Let's talk. But every time I read one of those texts, all I could remember was how small I used to feel in my own home. Like a stranger in the life I built. So I never replied. Months went by. I healed. Not in a straight line. There were rough days. Lonely nights. But over time, I realized something powerful. It's better to be alone in peace than to be together in emotional starvation. One night, I ran into a woman at a bookstore. Her name was Rachel. Funny, grounded, no games. She asked questions and actually listened. When she laughed at my dumb joke, I felt something I hadn't felt in years seen. We started seeing each other. Slowly. She didn't try to fix me. She just respected me. I told her early on, I'm not here to be anyone's ATM or emotional punching bag. I've been through that. She nodded and said, good. I'm not looking for someone to rescue me. I'm looking for a partner. That sentence alone felt like therapy. Madison still sends messages. The last one said, I didn't realize how much damage I did until you stopped loving me back. I'm so sorry. I didn't reply. Not because I hate her, but because I finally love me enough to never go back.